You're live.
All right. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Court Rutnowski coming to you. I got to do a Rush Limbaugh. There, that makes me feel better. Coming to you live from the Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut on this Monday, March 25th of the year of our Lord, 2024. So we got quite a few things to get through here. Where do I even start? Actually, I'm going to start with something that Eric and I were talking about earlier. So apparently Bridgeport has finally got the casino that it's wanted all these years. But we'll just say that there was a lot of drama to get to that point, including a story by our own Donald J. Trump, who many years ago, when on an initial foray, was looking at investing in a casino there. After a couple of months, he left, basically said, I've built many buildings. I've been involved in many projects. I've been involved with casinos. I've been around the world. And I have never been to a place like Bridgeport where so many hands are out. Okay, so to suggest that Bridgeport is the city of corruption, that would be an understatement. All right, so I just had to get that off my chest. Okay, the theme for tonight, when you find rot, clean it out. And this, as you're going to quickly find, attends to quite a few things. So first with the quickies, what I'm calling the steady fade of the Connecticut economy. All right, so you have these, I'm calling them what they are, kiss-ass journalists, and journalists would not be a fair phrase. One talking about how job growth slowed in February, but job growth remains steady. Okay, I've made this point before, and I'm going to make it again until it sinks in, and then people say, you, the liar over there who calls himself a journalist, sit down and shut up, or get your facts straight. Okay, there would be a ratio, if you will, between the size of the job market in Connecticut and the size of the job market in the rest of the country. If we take January and February job growth together, based upon the national averages, Connecticut should have seen approximately 6,200 new jobs. Well, guess what? We did not. We saw 3,350 so-called new jobs. In other words, we are not keeping up with the rest of the nation. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Now, the press will mislead you by occasionally saying, oh, look, we had a little spike here. I think we're matching the GDP growth of the rest of the country. Ooh. No, it's not working, guys. The long-term picture looks very bad. Okay, so there's this, and then the next part related to that was Dan Haar, our reliable socialist communist reporter, talking about Connecticut losing thousands of people, but to other states, but growing population, new data shows. Well, I would question every single last interpretation you apply to all these things. At least he's honest enough to say that Lamont has been trying to look at the job picture in Connecticut through rose-tinted glasses. That would be correct. But the fact of the matter is that it's just not accurate. Okay? So anyway, I put those up there, part of the same theme I keep beating away at. Now, it's interesting. This article almost got sent down the memory hole, but I grabbed it just in the nick of time. So Kevin Rennie, a conservative commentator in Connecticut, title says, Connecticut doesn't need lessons in child rearing from the authoritarian Chinese government. All right? So I first grabbed it and held on to it the second I saw it, knowing this was going to happen, and sure enough, a couple of hours later, gee, where did it go? I can't seem to find the article. So here we go. China, U.S. Senator Chris Murphy told the Forum Wednesday, is much more thoughtful and protective of its young people. Well, as we know, Senator Chris Murphy is surrounded by communists, and he's a communist himself. So we should expect nothing less from him. And this notion of being protective, I would question it. And that's, I mean, if you call authoritarianism protective, okay. Read it, decide for yourself. I think it's a joke. And thank you. Thank you, Chris Powell. I cannot thank you enough I was beginning to think I was the only one in the room until you wrote this piece. Title, Where Did Journalism Go? And Cardona Gets a Pass. Well, that's right. What has happened is, and it should be no surprise, this comment's been made before. Connecticut is the nation writ small when it comes to a sycophantic press. That's exactly what we're looking at here. All these people are shilling for Lamont and the party in power, and they have no interest in doing their job as investigative reporters, so that's left up to other people. And so thank you, Chris. Chris. Okay. Meantime, this is an excellent article. I highly recommend you people go read it. So it's American Thinker. It was put up yesterday. And the title is Domination Through Chaos and Fear. And bear with me, I just want to read this because it tells the story. In the decade that I served on a school board, I learned a great deal about group dynamics. The most important lesson, I suppose, is that there are people, most often highly neurotic people, who deliberately create chaos. They undermine every effort to rationally deal with the issues that inspire solutions, okay? And it goes on. Well, I have certainly seen this to be true. This is her experience. I know other people who will tell you it's true. There's something about whatever little shred of power that you get over other people, you totally abuse it. And so here it is, domination through chaos and fear. I wish I had more time to talk about this. Maybe I'll do a special on it, because this is really important. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a secret to share with you. It's an important secret. It's a secret that may be a little hard to understand. But I will say this. Boeing shares the same problem as the rest of corporate America. These incidents that we've been hearing with the jets is actually the product of a long-term, we'll call it decay in American business. And the person, so what they're doing here is they're canning, Stan Deal, Larry Kellner, and David Calhoun are supposedly stepping down. The real problem, ladies and gentlemen, for this dates back to, wait for it, Jack Welch. You may remember Jack Welch. He was the CEO of General Electric for many years, and he was noted for, shall we say, cutting costs. It's a philosophy that was embraced by corporate America because he had such a great record to begin with. Well, how we've been fooled, okay? I won't name the company, but in a similar vein, so what happens is every year they have to come back and trim the budget, all right? Trim, trim, trim. You got to cut something. Top management forces it on middle management, and they got to trim, trim, trim. So this unnamed company now has a problem in some of its laboratories where the pumps are malfunctioning and water is leaking all over the place because they let go of maintenance in order to cut costs, because that is the philosophy. Okay, well, this stuff is going to bite you in the rear at some point. So the message to corporate America is you have to jettison what Jack Welch did, all right? It has its limits, and I think we're at that limit because we're beginning to see a lot of major corporations getting into trouble. Next, the river is essentially dead. How Enviro's push to save salmon ended up killing hundreds of thousands of them. So I mentioned this last week. So this article was a follow-up to it. And I will tell you that I just want to quote one little paragraph from here, because this is where the argument begins. However, some officials and environmental policy experts are not buying the government's explanation for mass death of salmon, asserting instead that clearly the removal of the dams set the condition for mass death. So they're having a debate. And so, it's kind of like the contemporaneous thing. Event A happens at this time, and then event B happens with it. People will deny that there's a connection between the two, but they did kind of happen about the same time. So there's a tendency to see a connection. All right, next. Oh, God. All right, God bless Victor Davis Hanson, right? God bless him. So here's a article, Will DEI End America or America End DEI? And to wit, I cannot, oh yeah, that's the next article, so I'll save it for this. What happens here? Okay, so he goes through a long historical analysis, which is what he's great at. Basically he says there is a historic, malevolent role of states adjudicating political purity. All right, so in other words, they impose a certain set of ideas because they think that's the way the world is supposed to work. Well, oftentimes, their idea of how the world is supposed to work is a criticism of the way the world really works. And for that, they don't understand what they're doing, and they get everybody else into trouble. Okay? So just to rattle them off, Stalin had to get rid of the ideologues in his army in order to fight the Nazis. Napoleon had to deal with the system of entitlement for picking officers in France, Mao's decade-long cultural revolution, even Muammar Gaddafi. So these were all examples of people who tried to impose ideas about how to run a government, and all created disasters. And now we're on the threshold of something similar. And again, just bear with me, because these quotes I think are important. You can go there, but I want to highlight this. So the common denominator of critical theories, from critical legal theory to critical race theory to toxic nihilism. It claims that there are no absolute standards, only arbitrary rules and regulations set up by a privileged, powerful class to exploit the other. All right? That's a good place to start in this discussion. And this kind of nihilism and relativism is what's ruining us now. You see it in transgenderism, identity politics. We had that video that was up, and it tells the story. Okay, next, Scott Adams has come up with a new definition for DEI. It's great. Didn't earn it. Meantime, John Quincy Adams, this has been dredged up because we've had growing conflicts with Muslims, of course, over the last few years, and I think we can argue that these relationships are getting worse and not better. So John Quincy Adams wrote an essay on Turks. Highly recommended. Go to the link, check it out. James Carville lashes out at preachy females. So just to show you how dumb this guy is, I'm going to say it, this hick from Arkansas, even though he helped Clinton win, that picking on preachy females to explain why the Democrats are low in the polls shows that he too is out of touch with reality. Mr. Carville, try corruption. Try dishonesty. And I'll throw in one more for you. Try treason. Moving on. Now, the other part here, every federal agency suffers from mission creep. And mission creep can be a product of the type of policy you decide to set. So this piece from the American Thinker, the title is The FBI's Otherwise Illegal Activity. So what we're seeing here is mission creep, where they're coming up with more categories and ways to label more Americans as domestic terrorists, and it's out of control, out of control. And great, I love this one. Houthis strike Chinese ship in the Red Sea despite safe passage assurances. That's another example of mission creep, where you have these guys deciding this is the right thing to do, and they just go out there without any regard to who they're really going after, not even bothering to figure it out. And I just want to mention a quote from the movie Lord of War that starred Nicolas Cage. He was having dinner with a competitor and stopped for a moment, became very reflected, and Lord of War was about an international arms dealer. So at dinner he says, you know, I just realized that I'm not an international arms dealer until I'm selling arms against the interests of my own nation. There you go. Excuse me. Okay. Now, this is actually a bigger problem because we know that the healthcare system in this country has been, shall we say, less than responsive. Less than responsive. The title is, researchers, that would be Japanese researchers, warn of blood transfusions with vaccinated blood. So to cut to the chase, they are finding, as are others, researchers in other parts of the world, that those people who received these gene therapy treatments as vaccines, their blood, when transfused and put into other people, has resulted in post-vaccination thrombosis and subsequent cardiovascular damage, as well as a wide variety of diseases involving all organs in the body. Okay, it's here. You can find the research as well. Call it a warning. Now, this is interesting. Now, some of you may have noticed that a couple weeks ago, a judge ruled that illegal aliens can buy guns. Bad idea. So I don't know if they're going to exploit this. Hopefully somebody will step up to the plate, the NRA, somebody. Illegal aliens tried to buy guns almost 48,000 times in 2023. Now that we have illegal aliens who are acting as squatters in people's houses, how long before they show up with their variety of weapons and get rid of people? Anyway, so here's the last story. Mop-Up Man is the former ATF agent running the J6 pipe bomb cover-up. So this is a new angle. Nobody's covered this, of course, except for Revolver News. And yeah, so I'm trying to find the guy's name here. We'll find him. Bear with me, bear with me. Here we go. Ashen M. Benedict, Assistant Police Chief in charge of Protective Intelligence Operations, U.S. Capitol Police. So for somehow he's come to the attention of the investigators at Revolver News, and there's a lot of curious stuff in terms of what happened during those days, where he was, what kind of communications he was handling at the time, etc. So to say that he's a person of interest would be an understatement. Check it out. I wish I could spend more time on this. This is 24 pages. Okay, guys, that's it.
Just before we go, could you talk about the Dan Quigley and
oh, geez. Yes.
Connecticut?
Sure I could. Okay, so God bless her. Jackie Holman, Greenwich Patriots, put out a piece today about well, the first part is that, there are two parts, bear with me. These are actually related. So part one, back in September, there was a software app called Minga, which was forced onto high school students. It's a tracking app that the administrators use to keep track of where all the kids are. I don't know how you say Big Brother, but I spell it M-I-N-G-A. And in the meantime, so several months later, now we have the Truth Commission, if you will, that Fred Camillo has put together, presumably as a result of October 7th, although we have reason to question that. And so you have what are clearly, excuse me, two examples of Big Brother doing his thing. One's over here out in the town, the other's over here in the school system. And somewhere, I have a feeling they'll meet. So so Dan Quigley has been very quick to start, quote, tattling. This is what Jackie's suggesting, tattling to Tony Jones, the superintendent of the school, on things that Jackie's been saying and doing. This is disgusting. And if I see Dan Quigley, I'm going to tell him as much and more, just to let you know. But this has been going on. So there's a battle unfolding here. Much of what's happening in this nation can be condensed into what's happening in Greenwich. It's terrible. But that's that part, and we'll be putting out some other things here. Look for my newsletter I'll have out soon, and we'll be doing a lot of shorts.